Charlemagne was born around April 2nd, 742, although the exact date and location remain uncertain. Some sources suggest he was born in Herstal or Liege in present-day Belgium, while others propose Aachen or Ingelheim in modern Germany. He was the eldest son of Pepin the Short, the first king of the Franks from the Carolingian dynasty, and Bertrada of Leon. His birth occurred during a time of transition in the Frankish kingdom, as the Carolingians were rising to power after supplanting the Merovingian dynasty. Little is known about his early childhood, but it's believed he received a practical education, focusing on military training, governance, and Christian values, which would later shape his reign as one of the most influential rulers of medieval Europe. Pepin the Short died on September 24, 768, in Saint Denis, near Paris. His death marked the end of a significant reign during which he had solidified Carolingian authority and established close ties with the papacy. Following Frankish tradition, his kingdom was divided between his two sons, Charlemagne and Carloman. This division would set the stage for future tensions between the brothers, ultimately leading to Charlemagne becoming the sole ruler after Carloman's death. Pepin was buried in the Basilica of Saint Denis, a traditional burial site for Frankish kings. His passing marked a turning point in Frankish history, paving the way for Charlemagne's eventual rise to power and the expansion of the Carolingian Empire. Carloman, the younger brother of Charlemagne, died suddenly on December 4, 771, under mysterious circumstances. At the time, he ruled the eastern part of the Frankish kingdom, while Charlemagne ruled the western portion. His unexpected death, possibly from natural causes or illness, eliminated the power-sharing arrangement between the two brothers that had often been tense and uneasy. Rather than passing Carloman's lance to his sons, as might have been expected, his territory was quickly absorbed by Charlemagne. Carloman's widow, Gerberga, fled with their children to the Lombard court in Italy, seeking protection. This event allowed Charlemagne to consolidate power as the sole king of the Franks, setting the stage for his future military campaigns and imperial ambitions. In 773, Charlemagne launched a military campaign against the Lombards in northern Italy. The conflict was sparked by the Lombard king Desiderius, who had supported the claims of Charlemagne's nephew sons of his late brother Carloman, and posed a threat to papal territories. At the request of Pope Adrian I, Charlemagne crossed the Alps with his army and laid siege to the Lombard capital, Pavia. After several months, the city surrendered in the spring of 774. Charlemagne deposed Desiderius and took the title king of the Lombards, becoming the first Frankish ruler to hold both crowns. This campaign significantly expanded Frankish influence into Italy and reinforced Charlemagne's role as protector of the Pope, strengthening the alliance between the Frankish kingdom and the Roman Church. The Saxon Wars, fought between 772 and 804, were a prolonged series of campaigns led by Charlemagne to conquer and Christianize the pagan Saxons in northern Germany. The wars began when Charlemagne destroyed the Irminsul, a sacred Saxon shrine, provoking fierce resistance. Over the following decades, the Saxons rebelled repeatedly, often regaining territory and defying forced conversions. One of the most infamous episodes occurred in 782, when Charlemagne ordered the execution of 4,500 captured Saxons at Verdun, an event known as the Massacre of Verdun. The conflict was marked by brutal warfare, scorched earth tactics, and persistent uprisings, especially under the leadership of the Saxon chieftain Witikind. After years of rebellion and negotiation, Witikind eventually submitted and accepted baptism in 785. The wars continued sporadically until 804, when the last major resistance was crushed. The final outcome was the complete integration of Saxony into the Carolingian Empire and the firm establishment of Christianity in the region, though at great human and cultural cost. In 778, during Charlemagne's campaign into the Iberian Peninsula, his army suffered a significant setback at the Battle of Roncesvalles Pass. After aiding Muslim allies in northern Spain at failing to capture the city of Zaragoza, Charlemagne began retreating across the Pyrenees. As his forces crossed the narrow mountain pass of Roncesvalles, the rear guard was ambushed by local Basque warriors. The Basques, familiar with the terrain and skilled in guerrilla tactics, inflicted heavy losses on the Frankish forces. Among the dead was Roland, a commander of the rear guard and later a legendary figure in medieval literature. The battle was a tactical defeat with little strategic impact, but it became immortalized in the Song of Roland, one of the oldest and most celebrated epic poems in medieval Europe. The event underscored the challenges of campaigning in distant, mountainous regions and exposed the vulnerability of even the most powerful armies. In 788, Charlemagne annexed the Duchy of Bavaria into his expanding empire. The Bavarian Duke, Tassilo III, had long been a semi-independent ruler with ties to both the Lombards and the Pope, but his loyalty to Charlemagne was increasingly in question. Accused of conspiracy and failing to fulfill his military obligations, Tassilo was summoned before an assembly of nobles and clergy, where he was deposed and forced into monastic exile. Charlemagne then incorporated Bavaria directly into the Frankish realm, eliminating a powerful regional rival and securing the eastern frontier of his empire. This move also positioned Charlemagne to launch further campaigns against the Avars in Central Europe, expanding his influence and spreading Christianity deeper into the continent. The annexation of Bavaria marked another step in Charlemagne's consolidation of power across Western and Central Europe. Between 791 and 796, Charlemagne launched a series of campaigns against the Avars, a nomadic people who had established a powerful cognate in the Carpathian Basin. The conflict began as a response to Avar raids on Frankish and Bavarian territories. Charlemagne personally led the first campaign in 791, advancing into Avar territory along the Danube. Subsequent expeditions, led by his son Pepin of Italy and loyal commanders, gradually weakened the Avar state. By 796, the Avar capital, known as the Ring, was captured and plundered, bringing an end to the Avar cognate. Vast amounts of treasure were seized and distributed across the Frankish Empire, and the region was open to Christian missionary activity and Frankish control. The defeat of the Avars marked a significant expansion of Charlemagne's influence into Central Europe. In 800, Charlemagne intervened in Rome to support Pope Leo III, who had been attacked and nearly blinded by political enemies. The Pope fled to Charlemagne's court for protection and was later restored to power in Rome, with Charlemagne's backing to resolve the conflict and reaffirm his position. Leo swore an oath of innocence before a council in Rome on Christmas Day of that year during Mass at St. Peter's Basilica. Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne Emperor of the Romans, reviving the title in the West for the first time since the fall of the Western Roman Empire. This act established the foundation of the Holy Roman Empire and cemented a powerful alliance between the Frankish monarchy and the Roman Church. On December 25, 800, Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans by Pope Leo III during a Mass at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The coronation came after Charlemagne had intervened in Italy to defend the Pope and stabilize the region. As Charlemagne knelt in prayer, the Pope placed a golden crown on his head, declaring him emperor, a move that surprised Charlemagne. According to some sources, the act symbolically revived the Western Roman Empire, which had collapsed over 3 centuries earlier, and positioned Charlemagne as the political and spiritual heir to ancient Rome. This coronation marked the beginning of what would later be known as the Holy Roman Empire and strengthened the bond between the Frankish monarchy and the papacy. It also created tension with the Byzantine Empire, which still considered itself the true continuation of Roman authority. Charlemagne's new title elevated his status in Europe and laid the foundation for medieval Christendom, blending religious and secular power in a way that would influence European politics for centuries. During his reign, Charlemagne implemented a series of governance reforms that strengthened and centralized the Carolingian Empire. One of his primary strategies was the creation of a system of royal agents known as missi dominici, who were sent across the empire to ensure that local lords followed the king's laws and policies. These agents, typically paired in teams of a noble and a cleric, were tasked with inspecting local governance, resolving disputes, and overseeing justice. Charlemagne also reformed the legal system by issuing a series of written laws known as capitularies, which provided guidance on everything from land management to religious practices. To support his military and administrative endeavors, he reorganized his realm into counties and duchies, ensuring more efficient local rule and reducing regional power. Charlemagne's reign also saw a revitalization of learning and culture, often referred to as the Carolingian Renaissance. He invited scholars from across Europe to his court, most notably Alcuin of York, who helped establish a palace school that became a center of intellectual life. Charlemagne promoted education, for both the clergy and the nobility, encouraging literacy and the study of Latin, which helped preserve classical knowledge. Additionally, he encouraged the copying of ancient manuscripts, preserving many works of antiquity that would have otherwise been lost. Under his reign, the arts flourished, and Carolingian architecture, characterized by its Romanesque style, began to take shape. Charlemagne's governance and reforms laid the foundation for the political, cultural, and intellectual landscape of medieval Europe. In the later years of his reign, Charlemagne's focus shifted toward consolidating his vast empire and preparing for its future. His relationship with his sons, especially his eldest, Louis the Pious, became increasingly important as Charlemagne sought to ensure the continuity of his empire. In 813, Charlemagne crowned Louis as co-emperor, signaling his desire for a smooth succession and a unified rule under his lineage. However, the strain of constant military campaigns, administrative duties, and the challenges of ruling such a large empire took its toll on Charlemagne's health. Charlemagne passed away on January 28, 814, at the age of around 72, in his capital of Aachen, where he had spent much of his later life. His death marked the end of an era, as the Carolingian Empire began to face the challenges of maintaining unity and power across its vast territories. Charlemagne was buried in Aachen Cathedral, a site that had become a symbol of his rule. His death left a legacy of political and religious influence, and his empire was eventually divided among his surviving sons, with Louis the Pious inheriting the title of emperor. Despite the division, Charlemagne's vision of a united Christian Europe would resonate through the centuries, and his reign is remembered as one of the most significant in medieval history.